donations and private charity, I think you see plenty of great examples of private charity already existing amongst lots of people. It makes people feel good to donate. And you see Japan, Haiti, Africa, hundreds and hundreds of millions, I mean billions of dollars and resources being donated voluntarily. Katrina's another example. So I mean, I know those are extreme ones, but what about cancer? You look at the fight for cancer, billions have been put into that voluntarily. So I think there's
Whole Foods, an excellent corporation. Do business with Whole Foods. They give a lot to charity.
Lots of entities as well. I think there's already lots of examples of people who donate and would probably donate more if they had more money.
Right, exactly.
I mean, yeah, I'm a pretty self-interested person. I do community service all the time, and like, well, one thing that I like free T-shirts. That's awesome. Like, I never have to buy T-shirts ever, and like they give free food at a lot of them too. So there are definitely incentives already out there to do something that people might not normally consider in like the best interest of oneself. And help out and still do something.
Right, exactly, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of incentive systems out there to really get people, give people an incentive to give to charity, even if it's just labor.
Why would you need an incentive in the first place?
Why would you need an incentive in the first place?
Well, I mean, the extension through ego is actually doesn't dictate. It suggests, and at some point it starts dictating, depending on your progress in egoism, that these incentives are just not necessary anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean,
these incentives are necessary subconsciously to you, but as you are ascending egoism, you probably will lose them. Odds are.
So do you mean the incentives will lose their effectiveness as
you will not have that subconscious need.
You won't have the subconscious
drive for external pleasures from charity.
Oh,
that's debatable.
Well, yeah, but would you still want the free T-shirt and the Nalgene bottle? Would you still want the T-shirt and Nalgene bottle?
Yeah, Nalgene bottle.
No, as I said, to give out. That's the point. Not to receive. There's a difference between receiving and giving.
Okay.
I think that you really would have to incentivize charity in an egoistic society, because you can't say that giving to charity makes you feel good, because there has to be something underlying that, because just giving, you're giving for a purpose. You're expecting something to happen without actually knowing whether it's going to happen. Just because you give somebody $5 doesn't mean that they're going to go out and buy food or clothing or something. Like, they might use it to actually harm themselves, and then you sort of defeated your own purpose. And the underlying, you can't just say, oh, it makes me feel good to give people money. Maybe you think that, but it's what they do with it, really. Like, you're trying to have a good result, and you don't know whether you're going to have a good result or not when you give them money.
Sure. I don't know if you've had some personal experience with this, or you, Steve, but through my experience in doing development work, it's actually quite common where people just donate and it gives them satisfaction to give money. You can see this simply like on the streets. If someone gives a homeless person $5, they just feel happy. They don't know what the homeless person's going to do with it. The homeless person's like,
expectation though that they're going to,
but they don't. It's not like they follow the homeless person
because
around.
they feel like they're
You have
giving
no
the
idea
person
what-
an
whether it's
opportunity.
gonna
That's
happen.
the expectation, though.
Yeah.
To give money and
To
feel
give money
happy
and the
about
guy takes the
yourself.
money.
I don't think that that's
in the
true.
development field.
Like, maybe if you're incentivized or brought up that way, maybe. But even still, like, you're brought up that way because, like, of a reason that behind charity. Like, charity in and of itself is not an incentive to do anything. Like,
in
you
the
need
development
to.
field, people make millions of dollars catering to people's emotional want to get themselves pleasure.
But they get it. It's a psychological thing. They think by giving money, they're giving someone else happiness, and they're happy because of that. Just giving money, I sincerely
I don't
doubt.
know
Just
if giving them
money.
happiness so much as you're giving them an opportunity.
Guys,
I would want something to actually tangibly happen if I were to give money. I don't want to just give money.
If you give it to an
Other people aren't like that.
hey guys, hey. Point taken, Luke, then Ivan.
I mean, I don't know exactly what you're trying to say, because if you're right that, like, okay, maybe somebody's wrong for feeling good about giving charity because the charity doesn't do what they expect it to do. But I mean, that's a problem not with the way that they're, not with like, it's not like a problem against like egoist thinking. That's just like a problem with the charity. Like maybe they should be more efficient with how they give their money away. I mean, that's like has nothing to do with. You're still admitting though that an egoist can give, can get something out of just giving something to someone else, right?
Yeah, but
So
I would take issue with the fact that you can say that you purely by giving away money can get a good feeling if you're an egoist. Because I don't see how giving away money can ever be in your
You can certainly
interest.
get a good feeling. I mean, you could be wrong. I see what you're saying, but
Is happiness in your interest?
Yes, but the
But
happiness
I mean, that's a problem with your philosophy.
Okay, guys,
Giving
guys.
away money is
Ivan,
to an
then,
egoist is
I'm
the
sorry,
exact opposite of what
Jim.
it is.
Okay, so Ivan, then Jim.
I have about five, couple words to say about this. This concept is rooted in psychology of most human beings, is how society is bringing us up. Well, raising us both egoists and people with morals, quote unquote. When people try to give up those morals, certain people who call themselves atheists and whatnot, or somebody who just doesn't bother to think about religion, still have those psychological fears who are very deeply rooted down. They don't realize they have. Lots of things actually in your life are really rooted down to their subconscious mechanism that you might not realize. And unless they're become serious problems, you will never probably even go and fix them. From an egoistical perspective, it's an ambivalent thing to do so. You can say that it will take more energy to fix this conflict than you get out of it, or you can say that not fixing any problems with you is a bad idea because you're supposed to strive to idealism yourself, according to philosophy. So it's really about, but point being, the concept is psychological, and I don't want to say made up, but implanted is a better way to put it. And when you start confronting it later on, and you might lose sight of it. However, there's quite a possibility that we'll never confront it. In our current society, most people have it to a certain extent. But in an egoistical society, they wouldn't have it, because if you start constructing an egoistical society from the ground up, the concept doesn't exist.
I think we exist in an egoist society.
No, we're not. Definitely.
I think
we're not even
absolutely
close.
human nature is 100% egoism.
Well, I think there's
Not
a
even
different.
close.
I think the type of.
No, not
At
even
all.
close. No,
Okay,
I
hold
mean,
on,
there's a lot of
guys.
egoism,
And
but
the
it's not
state.
purely egoism.
Hey, Robert's rules. Robert's rules. I have the chair. All right. I think the key disagreement. I think the key disagreement is over how people are defining egoism. If you want to have a conversation about that after the Q&A, that's fine. But for now, let's table that. Go ahead, Jim.
Speaking of what you were saying, I guess my question is, what makes somebody decide to give their $5 to one bum versus another bum? And if both, then what? I think that it's implicitly factored into like the probabilities of whether they're going to go spend the money on crack or something worthwhile in your point of view when you actually decide to give them the money.
There was this one guy who, one homeless guy, he had AIDS and stuff, and gave a long story about how you should always use a condom and
Is
stuff.
that Black Cupid?
What?
Black Cupid?
Oh,
Is
that
that-
with AIDS? Yeah,
Yeah, and he's like always around, and he's really funny. So I
It's
give,
an awesome dude.
I give him money because he entertains me.
I always give money to street musicians, just because I think that's
I give him
a
a
cool
cool
aesthetic
Don't be a really funny
thing
joke.
that they can do to raise
You
money.
deserve it.
I wanted to take it a little bit different direction. I was wondering if
He's good.
distributed systems are better at dealing with the information problem in pretty much every field of economics, then why are legal services such an exception?
Legal services in general, like, how do you mean?
Well, like you were talking about, dispute resolution or also services where you're dealing with contracts.
Okay.
I think that in those areas, the government offers some solutions, but they haven't evolved to keep pace with the way that people do business.
Oh, okay. So you're criticizing the government centralized court system.
Well, a centralized system at all, on the bottlenecks with the state.
Yeah, there are some practical and political problems with doing distributed legal systems, just because of legitimacy of use of force and enforcement of those legal remedies. But I think there is a misperception in this country that the only legal recourse you have is through government-run courts. The American Arbitration Act, which was passed some decades ago, allows for government-sponsored court enforcement of privately reached remedies through mediation or arbitration. So like the American Arbitration Association is one organization that's a private organization, does a lot of arbitration for major companies. Pretty much all those foreign contracts that I was talking about earlier have arbitration clauses in them, which are enforceable. And that's a mode of private enforcement. Mediation is another great mode of private enforcement. If Tyler wanted to mediate a dispute between Deanna and Aaron, Tyler could do that. Say Aaron won, she could bring the order to me, a court judge, and I would then be legally bound to execute the order that Tyler gave.
To me, that sounds a little bit like when we all had to get in a circle and bring our answers to our leader, and then he was the one who was allowed to say the answer.
Right, and again, yeah, there are some political and sort of moral issues with enforceability and legitimacy of using force in enforcement. So those are problems that, unless you're an anarcho-capitalist of a really extreme bent, are very difficult to resolve.
You mentioned legitimacy. How does the courts gain legitimacy? How do they gain legitimacy?
What's the definition?
I need Admiral Akbar to run there. It's a trap!
I heard this like 8 times today.
I know that the answer you're looking for, Dan, is that you don't have any legitimacy. I'm just going to give the stock answer that's been given for the last 200 years. There's a social contract between the government, and that gives the courts legit. I don't want to get into it right now. We can talk about that. Dan and then Shai, do you have your hand? Okay, so Dan, then Shai, and then
Okay, so you propose that the legal system is like better, like we have contracts, and like the contracts have to be upheld. If they're not, we take people to court.
Sure.
We can sue people. But the problem with that is court fees, lawyer fees. Sometimes you're going up against a huge corporation.
Hey, there's no problem with lawyer fees.
Okay, but the problem isn't the fact that there is a fee. The problem is that, you know, corporations can afford that, whereas individuals can't.
Okay, yeah.
So how do you take into account that there are smaller players in the market going up against these huge players who have more resources at their disposal?
Private charity, public interest law.
There are
great.
charities for that.
Yeah, great example.
CLS.
Yeah, CLS. Also, Pacific Legal Fund and IJ, the Institute for Justice. Great organization. I got to meet Clark Neely, who was co-counsel on DC v. Heller. Wrote an amicus brief for Kilo v. New London. Excellent organization. I mean, they provide free services to people to help defend them from horrible government misdeeds. And I think that more private charity in the legal market is absolutely necessary, and that I hope will help to resolve that problem. We also need more lawyers. The problem we have right now is that the American Bar Association charges upwards of $1,000 to take the bar exam. You pay. Yeah, I mean, you wind up paying, upwards of $100,000 for a legal education, 3 years out of law school. Then you have to take a bar exam course. That's another $10,000, and then another $1,000 for every state you take the bar in. So there's a huge cost of entry to get into the legal market, and a lot of that's because of government mandated licensing. Shai, then Ivan, then Pericles.
You
Then
said it.
Go ahead, Shai.
Mine goes back to like egoism and like goes back to Hayek.
Okay.
It would be tricky to actually state it in better writing, but with Hayek, he actually said that information that it doesn't exist in its entirety in any one single individual.
Sure.
So if you have an egoist philosophy of mind, then it kind of seems to state that an individual is capable of preserving all the data that exists within the universe in his own mind. But if you have a less egoistic society in which individuals work as a collective unit, but still while preserving their individual freedoms, then it seems like it would be in the better